A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining me on Uctv. My name is Nora Sende. This is the weekend edition where we get to discuss some of the headlines or the issues that are making headlines in our country. Now, recently we had preliminary results of the census of 2024. The National Population and Housing Census of 2024 will release the preliminary results, and we saw quite remarkable changes in different areas of the country. Well, we saw a significant increase with nearly 46 million now of Ugandans. We also saw 11.3 increase of the population that's compared to the census, the previous census. And we have seen a lot of significant changes, especially when it comes to cities that are growing, in Bara and Gule having very high, remarkable populations. And basically, to make sense of these numbers, we have in studio Dida Kasokoth, who is the Senior Public Relations Officer of the National Bureau of Statistics. A very good evening, and thank you so much for joining us, Didakas.
Thank you, Nora.
Well, the population census was released, preliminary results actually were released recently. Could you just give us a summary of the key findings of the preliminary results?
Thank you, Nora, and thank you all the viewers. Straight to the point, we are of course grateful to Ugandans for coming out to participate actively in the census, and that's why we're able to, of course, generate the results and have it released in 1 month. And this is, of course, based on the census roadmap that stated that within 1 month after the last day of enumeration, we should be able to have the preliminary results released to the population, and they can start making good use of it. In fact, it was just exactly 31 days since the last day of enumeration, and there we were able to provide key results such as the total population, the population of women, men, regional distribution, cities, and so on and so forth. Obviously, we have the population of 45.9 million in total, with the women taking about the bigger percentage, 51%, and then the male about 49%. Of course, those differences have also been always there in the previous censuses, and I think it is still good that these figures are availed to the population, and we should be able to understand how the dynamics that come with this, for sure. Yeah. But of course, very importantly is that it so happens that at birth, in fact, more males are always born, even at schools. But whatever happens thereafter, I think it is another issue that will be discussed.
Oh, yes, that's another issue that will be truly discussed. Now, we've seen the Uganda population has grown by 11.3 million since that's 2014. And we are nearly reaching 46 million as Ugandans, or we are exactly 45.9 really millions, as you had mentioned. What are some of the factors that have contributed to this significant growth?
I think the most important factor is the stability. You know, when a country is stable, people are able to actively engage in all the other activities, which is economical and social. Secondly, we have also had improvement in our health sectors. We have gotten a lot of early child immunization, and of course this protects children from early deaths. You saw, according to the UDHS findings, we now have lesser children actually dying, either at 0 years or at below 5 years. The mortality rate has actually gone down. So of course this obviously contributes to the general population growth. Also, the other factor is that I already talked of the aspect of stability, that when we are stable, then we are able to actively engage in various activities. So over and above, you realize that, yes, the trend in population growth, we are growing. We are growing from the 34.6 million that was in 2014. Now have 46 almost. The 11 more million persons that have been born and survived over the period. I think it is something which is very good for our country. But even also in terms of competition, the bigger the population, the higher the competition, the higher the rate of creativity in the mindsets, and that of course it also translates into our socioeconomic development. Yes, other than when you are very few, and also of course you see everything is at large. You have a lot of resources to use, and therefore you really don't see why you should work hard or struggle to have something new in place. Yes.
Talking about competition, there is a category of people, population that is really going to compete. That is the age between 0 to 17 years that make up half of the population. What implication does this have to the Ugandan systems in terms of things like education and health?
Of course, first of all, when you have a young population, it gives you the benefit of continuity.
Right.
As a generation. You know that you will have a generation that will serve in the next years to come. And of course, that's very important. Then, of course, when you have the population of youth, which we may call those who are within secondary, university level, of course, that means that as a country, it is better that now we get into how we plan to absorb this very big growing population of the youth. And that's why it is very critical that over the years you have seen a lot of youth development initiatives. This of course translates into the kind of figures that the youth population provides, and therefore it gives us an opportunity to rethink. We have now a lot of skilling programs, which is initiated by the president. This is all intended to absorb the so many youth that we are having as a population. So the young population, one, they are very energetic. Of course, they make a lot of contribution as well to our economy. Yes, their income may be low, but in terms of output, there's a lot of contribution that they can make in the various sectors of the economy. So for me, I think it is something good, but of course it translates very importantly in terms of how do we plan for them? How do we plan to utilize this very fresh energy of the youth? How do we make them productive? And of course that is not our role as statistics, but it's the role of other institutions of government. So for us, now that we have availed the figures, we have made it available, it is very critical that the planning starts. And of course now we have the NDP3, which is closing soon. We are going into the NDP4. All these figures will make a very big contribution in the entire planning process of our country.
Now we're talking about the biggest demographic, that was the young people, the youthful population. Let's just turn it a bit to the smaller demographic that constitutes only just 5%, and that's the elderly people between 60 years and above. How well do you think government can actually help or plan for this very small demographic?
Of course, we already have the program by government to provide for the elderly, the SAGE. And of course, I think it is effectively working. Maybe, for me, what I think now, even now the government has the latest findings. Yeah, it should now rethink and appreciate how it is going to support these older persons even much better. If they can increase their monthly earnings or annual earnings, the better for us. But of course, it is good to have a happy population, not a population that is disgruntled. But of course, as a country, we are lucky that we have gotten a lot of resources, but also there's a lot of available food stuff here in this country. I really don't think that we can go into the level of starving. What now remains is to ensure that these people have something whereby they can use to buy sugar, buy soap, the common things that they need to use as a household. But in terms of food, I think our country has a lot of food. And also in terms of medication, of course, we appreciate other policies that has provided a bit of free access to health services. And of course, this is also an advantage. The only thing which remains is to strengthen it and ensure that they are more effective and the systems are working. Yeah.
Very nice. Now that you are breaking down the different demographics and how government could properly plan for them, let's go to the refugees. The refugees number were about 780,000 refugees, right, in the country. And we've seen Uganda having one of the best refugee policies in the world. And we see this in continuation, really. How does this number signify what government can do more for them?
Of course, you see, first of all, we must thank the government that has accepted to host this number of refugees. One thing which stands out is that this figure is accurate in a sense that the people who work within the refugee and among themselves, they participated in counting these people. So what does that mean? That now we have reliable information. All now it takes is to ensure that the government plans better for them, but also the other agencies that are responsible, for example, the UN, that is responsible in ensuring that the refugee communities are well settled and living better with equal access to all the social services. I think Uganda provides that fertile ground for them. In terms of, first of all, security, they are safe. Secondly, in terms of community relations, the fact that now these people have been relocated to various camps and various community refugee centers, I have not heard of any case where they are complaining that, you know, they have been isolated by the natives. And I think we must thank ourselves as Ugandans that we are actually welcoming and we embrace certain factors that, you know, it is of international recognition. So these figures now means that the government can plan accurately for the refugees. Yes, there is no gambling about it. The planning should now be based on the latest findings that the census has given us.
And so, away from the demographics that we were discussing, this has been the very first digital census, and we've seen the preliminary results coming out in a super speed, and that is some of the greatest achievements of the most recent concluded population census. What else do you want to talk about in regards to the achievements of this population census? Because the coming out of these preliminary results has been really greatly welcomed, and a section of Ugandans are really, you know, grateful and applauding the time, the turnaround time of the numbers. What other achievements do you have to tell us about this?
First of all, one thing that we must appreciate is that over the years, the statistical infrastructure has been improving. And as of the census period, I must appreciate our institution that we have strengthened our statistical infrastructure, both in terms of human resource, but also in terms of technical capacity and the equipments that are able to provide a system that can enable us to quickly analyze data. Now, for example, Tanzania took, I think, 1.5 months to release their findings, about 45 days or 46 days to release their preliminary results. In fact, for us, we have broken a record that within a record time of 31 days, we're able to have the findings and share the findings to analyze the findings and put it out to the population. I think it's a great achievement, and of course it goes back to the kind of equipments that of course were used during this period. The kind of tablets, you know, those tablets were good in the sense that they would not actually easily lose power. In fact, we would hear some of the enumerators saying that, you know, you those tablets, they are very good with power system. Now, so all this helped us to, of course, ensure that we're able to capture the data in time and transmit this information to the data processing center. And that's why technologically we've done well. We've done well. And of course, this of course also goes with a lot of investment. We spent over 120 billion shillings to purchase these tablets, to purchase the power banks, and so on and so forth. So all this makes a very big contribution in ensuring that our data, first of all, there is also the issue of data safety. The team built a very good cloud system to monitor the transmission, to monitor the processing, to monitor each and every step of this data collection, transmission, processing, and then the analysis, of course, putting the information together and ensuring that the figures are accurate based on what we have picked from the field. So generally, technologically, we've done well, and we want to thank the government for that piece of investment.
Very nice. Talking about some of the data that you collected, we see that the household size has actually reduced a bit from 4.4, from 4.7 to 4.4 right now. What is the significance of this, and what do you think contributes to this dwindling of the household?
Of course, you see, in terms of development, as years pass by, there are many things that play into how the population behaves, the population characteristics, and all those other dynamics. For example, we cannot compare ourselves with 50 years ago when the number of schools were still few, or the number of people even going to school were few. But now we have so many, everywhere across this country, people going to school, and there's a lot of encouragement for the girl child. You know, there was that program that you remember this government embraced.
Oh, yes.
Of supporting the girl child, taking the girl child to school. That alone has greatly affected how the number of children that actually we produce. Because now you realize that many females are taking a longer time in schools. Someone finishes a university, proceeds for masters, goes for PhD, even before getting married. So what does it mean? By the time this person is finishing all those stages of education, maybe they have already reached, they have a few years actually to give birth. And so therefore you realize that someone opts for either 2 children or 3 children, and that's it. And of course this directly talks about how our household size has kept dwindling. And also we have a lot of households that are single, we call it single-headed households. And you know, these were people whom actually even found it hard to enumerate. Someone leaves in the morning, closes his door, comes back at 7 p.m. He has gone to work in the factory. One person lives in that room. You can't access them. They are not available during the day. They work Monday to Sunday. So there's a lot of also that is now playing into the aspect of having smaller household sizes. Yes. So there is also a lot of course, general understanding that now people are trying to be so economical. Someone says, if I produce 10 children, will I manage to educate them? Will I manage to feed them? Will I manage to treat them? So there is that feeling that, you know, the educated should now have lesser children.
Okay. So we see with the preliminary results still how the population is generally almost evenly split when it comes to gender, with the female taking 51% of the population, that's about, and then the male taking the rest of the population, of about 49%. How does that count in regards to socioeconomic development and planning for the country?
I think for me it is very easy. Statistically, if you have more females than males, what does it translate to? That now, while I know the government has so much focused on the female population, and there's been a lot of programs that were geared towards the females, but over and above, for me I think it still goes back to planning, that while we are now planning, let's plan based on evidence. Let's plan knowing that yes, we have more females than males. I have had a conversation on the streets that, you know, now men must prepare to marry more than one wife. But I think that is a layman's discussion of these figures, you know.
Yes.
Yes, we have a lot of comedians in our country, but of course they keep us going, and it makes part of conversation. But
Yes.
generally it is very important that now, as we plan, we must understand and appreciate that, yes, we have slightly more females than males. Yeah.
And then we see Kampala also being a populous city with significant numbers of visitors, according to your preliminary results. We just wonder, what are some of these opportunities and challenges that come with populous cities like Kampala?
Of course, when you have a city with a bigger population, it also helps you to actually develop. Because then you can understand that, yes, now we're going to be having more people either shopping in the city, and therefore you need more shopping malls.
Right.
You're going to have more cars entering the city, and therefore you need more gazetted parks where these vehicles can park very well, but also other individual vehicles, because if we have not yet embraced the aspect of general transport, say you're having a bus, and therefore people have to stop in Boyogere, load themselves into the bus, or board the bus to the city center. This is now situations whereby we must start rethinking of how do we have maybe wider roads. These are, so it plays a lot on what will happen in the next 10 years. If maybe the projection is going to talk about 60 million Ugandans. So what does that mean? But yes, it affects our development. For me, I think it affects our development positively.
Right.
Yes, but also it comes with a lot of competition and creativity, because everyone will be struggling to survive. So how you survive is another business. But of course, generally, you will realize that now we have the flyover at Queensway.
Right.
This has been brought about because of the traffic. But now there is a light traffic. People used to cry about traffic on Entebbe Road, but there's now more light traffic. We have the underground tunnel here along Mukwano. So all these have come up because of the growing population. Right. So which I think it is something very good for our country.
It is really.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the growing population. We've seen Kampala with a lot of the population really growing. I think it's the most populated in the cities. And then we've seen Bara coming up. We see Gulu. What are some of the future projections for these cities that are actually having huge population? What are some of, what do you think is going to be the trend in the future?
Of course, you see, first of all, just creation of cities alone, it is part of development.
Right.
And of course, there are standards, what defines an establishment of a city. So I think by the time the government decided to establish these 10 cities, the 9 plus Kampala, which makes it 10, actually 10 plus Kampala, which makes it 11, I think it is because of certain international standards that, you know, Fort Portal is worth being a city, Mbara is worth being a city, Gulu is worth being a city, Mbale, and so on and so forth. So generally, I think still it translates into in terms of development, that now we shall start to appreciate that instead of everyone coming to Kampala, for if you're in the West, you can actually say, let me invest where? In Mbarara. Because it is also a city, it is growing at a very fast rate. In fact, if you go to Mbarara, you'll realize that there is no day, there is no night, because business is running 24/7. To transport, cars are crossing from Mbarara to other parts of the western parts of the districts. So you realize that it is a continuous growth. So therefore, this means that as a planning authority, we must devise means of ensuring that we can sustain this rate of growth, of population growth in these cities, and therefore it should also equally translate in terms of the developmental trends that we expect. For example, the normal social services in terms of accommodation, safe water, better roads, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we have 55.6% that accounts for the working population. That translates in terms of economic development. How does the working population help? And we see quite a number now, really. How will that help in the
When you have the
growth?
bigger working population, it means that you're also able to collect more taxes. So directly that strengthens our budget capacity, and that's development. Because you know you have more human resource who are making contribution in terms of, first of all, taxes from what they earn, but also in terms of consumption. The viability is higher. You have more people spending money to purchase. So what does that mean? That now it translates to the producers, that we shall have more producers, their goods being bought. More suppliers, their goods being bought. So that contributes a lot in terms of economic development.
Let's talk about the accuracy of your data and the reliability of the data collected, which no doubt you've already hinted on in regards to the digital census. How is this data? How would you advise government institutions and bodies to use this data better?
First of all, when UBOS produces statistics, we produce statistics for everybody.
Right.
And we produce statistics to inform policy formulation, inform evidence-based planning, and also decision making. Now, the onus is now onto the users to make good use of this information. For whether it is health, agriculture, you know, this data affects all sectors of the economy. It affects all sectors of the economy. And that it is very important that we pick what belongs to us and make good use of it.
Right.
Yes. We shouldn't now start planning based on, you know, all the information. We are lucky that now the census is available.
Yeah.
It is accessible on the websites. The reports are available, you know. So it is very important that now we make good use of them and have better planning for our country.
Do we have some examples of how this census data has been used in the past to shape up planning and policies?
If I want to give an example, if you talk of 2014 data, you will realize that we have had now more institutions that have been established, more administrative centers.
Right.
We have now more cities, we have now more constituencies, we have more sub-counties. This is because of the growing population. But also we have had now more government preschools established, and even secondary schools and tertiary institutions, to absorb the growing youth population, the children and the youths, that they are able to go to school and study in a number that is well managed or manageable by their teachers. So all these are factors that have come out of the reliable information, reliable statistics.
Right.
Yes.
Based on the current trends right now, what are the projections that we have, let's say, for the next decade in Uganda?
In the next decade, I don't have the right figure, but I think the projection should be between 50 to 60 million people.
Because they're just projections, right?
Yeah, they're just projections.
They're just projections.
Yeah.
So we can't have like a definite figure.
Yeah, that
right
definite
now.
figure will be defined when we do the census, 2034.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the 2034, that seems like so far off, but you know, before you know it, it will be here.
Yeah.
So what initiatives are being implemented to ensure that you actually sustain whatever has been started, especially in regards to UBOS and the standards that you've set? Are you going to sustain it or even make it better?
I think in terms of sustenance always depends on leadership.
Right.
When you have a strong leadership, then you know you can sustain and even do better. UBOS is one of the credible institutions with very strong leadership, but also with a very capable human resource capacity.
Right.
And also now the Bureau has invested a lot in terms of statistical infrastructure, computers, you know, those the apps. So we have a good, a strong capacity that we must either sustain or even do better. Otherwise, there is no way we can become a world-class statistics office if we do not have that kind of leadership. And that's where we are heading.
Very nice. Tell us how we can access this information quite easily. We know the preliminary results right now, and more is yet to come. But just give us a brief of...
Of course, generally, we have so many areas to access information. We have reports which are printed, but also we have the online systems. We have the website, www.ubos.org. We have the Facebook, we have the Twitter account. All these provide key indicators that the population can easily pick and make good use of them.
Very nice.
Yeah. So now we are looking forward to releasing the provisional results come September 24th, and also the final or main report in December 24th.
How else can this information be used besides government institutions?
But you see, I told you that we produce statistics for everyone. Even at your home, at household level, you can use this data. You should now start thinking and say, if I have 2 children, I should not buy more than 1 kilo of meat. That's what numbers means. But also we have the academia, we have research institutions, we have cultural institutions, we have the religious, because we have data which talks about the culture, it talks about the religion, talks about... So the information is adequate for everyone in this country,
right,
and beyond. Yeah.
Okay, before we set off, what message would you give to the general public out there in regards to the recent preliminary results and generally the statistics of the census?
First of all, I want to thank our government for availing the resources to ensure that we're able to do the census in a record time.
Right.
What we call the 2020 rounds of censuses. At least we have achieved that. But also I want to thank the strong leadership of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics that has ensured that we're able to plan, get into business, and count people from household to household, and ensure that we have the data. One thing I want to assure the population is we have what we call confirmatory tests that is being provided to ensure that every household in every LC1 area was captured or was reached. So the LC1 writes to the ED to inform him and confirm to the Census Commissioner that my area has been successfully completed. This is one thing that we must know, that the 11 million households that we are talking about that were captured during the census, it is for the whole country. And this information has been confirmed to us by the various LC1 chairpersons, who were the guides to the enumerators. Therefore, the data is very accurate, the data is very reliable, and therefore it must be used for better planning.
Dida Kasokoth, thank you so much for making time and making sense of these figures and just reassuring us that actually the statistics that we have are actually accurate. That's one thing for sure. It is confirmed that everything that was counted or enumerated is actually accurate. This was a digital census. The turnaround time has been in a supersonic speed, and we can't thank the National Bureau of Statistics enough for giving us and doing everything possible to make sure that these census results have come out at a time that they have come out, actually. It is Nora Sende, and thank you so much for staying with us today as we highlight some of the issues that are making headlines in our country. We have just been discussing the preliminary results of the 2024 National Population and Housing Census and making sense of the figures. It has been nice having you. Until next time, do have yourself a wonderful evening.